Yeah, this offense is going to be scary when it's unpredictable. What do we need to see from TJ Hawkinson this year?
We want to see more than that for a guy that we know we put the money into. We just want to see him more consistently healthy.
You know, when we talk about this team in the future becoming a contender, can you win with Jared Goff? I think so.
I don't think he's hit his ceiling, which is why I still believe that you could win the whole thing with this guy. So I think they both have a blank canvas that they can build on this season, and I think we're gonna see the best Jared Goff going forward.
We are joined by Dose of Dion. Dion, it's been a minute, dude. How you doing, man?
Absolutely, man. It's good to see you. Hey, let me make sure. Can you hear me?
I hear you. I hear you just fine.
Okay, absolutely, man. It's good to see you again. How you doing?
Always good, man. Always good. Thanks for bringing me on the other week. That was fun with you and Jay from Let's Talk Lions. That was good, man. I had a ton of fun.
No, absolutely. That was great. We'll have to do it again. That was awesome. One of my favorite shows I've done.
Anytime, man. Anytime. I got to start with TJ Hawkinson. Fifth-year option has been exercised. This is a guy that, if we're honest, is one of the bigger threats on this team. What do we need to see from TJ Hawkinson this year where me and you can have a conversation at the bar or really here and say, you know what, yeah, that extension where he's likely going to make more than David Njoku, that extension makes sense for this football team?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think when you see the tight end contracts and you start to look at the cap hits, and you start to look at tight ends that are having a pretty high cap hit, tied with a quarterback that also has a pretty high cap hit. We're not really seeing that a ton in the NFL right now. I mean, you look at a Travis Kelce, his cap hit doesn't really go up till 2023, so we're kind of not sure what we're going to see there when that happens. But at the same time, because we know the salary cap is expected to go up, it's all about timing and how you set those contracts up. But to your point, yeah, if we did get paid, he'd probably be one of the highest paid tight ends in football. And I think there's a couple things that all Lions fans want to see. First thing, they want to just see him healthy. We know last year, I think he played 12 games. We want to see more than that for a guy that we know we put the money into. We just want to see him more consistently healthy. On top of that, for me, one thing I'm looking for is his impact in the red zone, because this is an area that Ben Johnson really pointed out. He said this is an area that they want to get better. They wanted more size here because he felt like from matchup problems, they wanted more size in the red zone. Their rushing efficiency was terrible, which, hey, I'm just going to be honest. I was going through the numbers yesterday. From week 12 on, the Lions averaged 2.75 yards per carry, and when it wasn't to a receiver, they had averaged 1.8 yards per carry inside the 25-yard line. Awful. So when I look at it, I see what is his impact in the red zone, because now they have that big guy. Now they have a DJ Chark if he's healthy inside the 25-20, right? So what does his impact continue to be? Because last year, all 4 of his touchdowns were all in the red zone. It was Chicago, it was Green Bay, it was San Francisco. They were all in the red zone. But I think for us, we want to see just that impact and see where that goes, because I think the thought might be it actually upticks because he has now other guys taking pressure off of him, or does it slide a little bit? It probably shouldn't slide much from 4, but where does that go from here, as well as staying healthy, are two things that we're going to be looking at, because, you know, it's very early. I feel like when we're trying to figure out paying these tight ends, as opposed to, does that actually make sense? Does it make sense to give a tight end that much money? And I think when you look at how the contract works, I think there's 2 ways you could do it for sure. Obviously, you could, backload or front load it. But I think one way, when you look at Jared Goff's contract, because we already picked up his 5th-year option, you could put it in the front a little bit, because if Goff is here in 2024, Goff's contract isn't going to be super high in terms of cap hit compared to others amongst the league. So you could kind of push some of that off now. Salary cap goes up, and now you're not feeling it as much. Or you can try to push it back like a Travis Kelce. Salary cap goes up, you're not feeling it as much. So we know it's all timing, but I would say those 2 things, healthy and impact in terms of touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, his red zone impact, ideally, is much, much more impactful than it's been over the years, and hopefully he's healthy. That is where I want to segue into the offense. Jameson Williams probably won't play until after the bye week. I just think they're going to play it safe. This is a team that is going to be loaded. And I want to talk midseason. I don't want to talk early on, because early on you're going to be missing a few pieces and things are still going to be developing. But let's say week 9, week 10, week 11 into the NFL season. What do the Lions look like on offense? Outside of a team that's going to be committed to the run, dominant in the line of scrimmage, what does this team look like? Is it complete deception, play action, and whoever's open is getting the ball? Or is Amon-Ra St. Brown going to develop into that X-level factor type of player?
That's a great question. And I think what's going to be exciting this year, and probably the most thing I'm excited about, especially after last year, is when we're talking week 9, 10, 11, maybe getting the JMOs back, it does, to me, it's going to come down to, we're going to start to see that depth come into play, just like every team, because last year, we started to feel it, but we felt it a little bit earlier. But you're going to really start to feel it. You said the offensive line, are we having to put backups in? Probably. Receiver is probably going to be down a little bit. So it may be all healthy, but it probably won't be. So we're going to start to feel that depth by about that time of the season. I would say about that time of the year, you're expecting this offense, specifically in the passing game, to really click. And I think it should get out pretty early because, going through it, just seeing what we did with Ben Johnson, the creativity was clear. I thought we used motion much better. I thought it gave Goff kind of a plan pre-snap versus what it was early in the season. But at the same time, we did see it open up last year when we got some of those outside weapons. I mean, there was a lot of routes early in the season, a lot. And it was hard to watch where you see some of those games, like, for example, Hawkinson, he had 10 receptions against Philly. And it's like, all right, you get a couple big seam plays. We want to see that continue. But it was a lot of just underneath. And you're driving a lot of guys over top, and they're just checking down underneath. Those are a lot of your play designs. It started to develop beyond that, and I started to feel like we were having answers for teams. Arizona, we had answers. Right? They keep throwing the same coverage. We're going to answer that. Even Denver, we just turned the ball over too much. So I think when you talk about that time, the hope is that the Lions are having more explosive plays to the point where we can make up one turnover. Now, 2, 3, 4, that's going to get you into problems because of just our style. Like you said, we like to run the ball. Can't turn the ball over that much. But one turnover, can we have a big play, a big shot play that gets us back into it? Because immediately Josh Reynolds brought us that versus Chicago. We felt it. We're like, oh, that's there. The 39-yard touchdown that he had. And Goff started to have answers. So I think by that time of the season, we're expecting the pass game to, in a way, really support the run game, because everybody knows the run game's coming early. Everybody knows you're getting hit with that. You're getting punched in the mouth week 1. But how does the pass game, kind of start to open that when everybody knows that's coming at about that time?
Yeah, this offense is going to be scary when it's unpredictable, but I would be very concerned if they're forced early on, let's say a 21-3 deficit at halftime where, they don't have much time going into the third quarter to keep going by the game plan, keep going by the script. And that's where we're going to have this conversation right now is, when we talk about this team in the future becoming a contender, can you win with Jared Goff? I think so. Can you win a playoff game with Jared Goff? Yes, I think so. Can you contend in the NFC with Jared Goff? Contend is a tough word for me because when I think of a contender, I think of a team that going into the season, we're talking about, hey, this is a team that's going to make a run for maybe a Super Bowl appearance. And that is tough for me to see with Jared Goff as the quarterback. Like I said earlier, I think they can have success with him, but Deanna, I don't believe we're going to be talking about a contender unless Dan Campbell's a top 5 coach and this defense turns into a perennial top 10 defense. I don't think this is a contender until they do draft a franchise quarterback.
I'm not with you there. A lot of things got to be going to be a contender, and I hope the Lions are closer. To your point, when you talk about, Jared Goff in that situation, I think to what I kind of touched on, I'm excited to see how this does develop with the offensive coordinator, because to me, I know I sound crazy. Look, I like Goff better last year. I liked his film specifically, obviously, if you go after the bye week, then I liked his 2018 stuff. I mean, I've watched all his past games, and his 2018 stuff, I get why he was productive. I get the offense that he was in, but I just didn't feel like he was finding answers for the defense. You could see everything kind of coming that was going to happen. With that said, I felt like there was, to begin the year, I didn't see that with Goff either. I thought there was still a lot of kind of similar things to what we saw last year. There's a lot of 1-2, 1-2. But again, at the end of the year, I think, and you got to give Ben Johnson a lot of credit here, because this may be the most I've ever talked about an offensive coordinator. But I give him credit because I feel like there was just so much creativity that you could see within that. So how does that develop? Because to me, I don't think I've seen Goff's ceiling yet. Maybe we have. I don't think we've seen it yet. But there's got to be a guy that kind of leads to that, like that's, going to bring that out of him, where going forward, Goff's kind of always has that. He understands it, and he can build off of it. I think Ben Johnson could be that guy to start to show what his capabilities are, to maybe open up the field, have him understand it, play a little bit faster. So even with Ben Johnson 5 years down the road, or without him, he may understand it going forward. So I don't think he's hit his ceiling, which is why I still believe that you could win the whole thing with this guy. But at the same time, he definitely has to have a better understanding that has to continue to improve going forward.
Yeah, again, Jared Goff is an interesting situation. I do think maybe his best football is still ahead of him. He's relatively very young. I'm not sure if you caught Andrew Whitworth on a podcast the other day. I would say 2-3 weeks ago. He was talking about the difference between Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, and why why Goff struggled towards the end of his relationship with McVay, and it looked as if, well, Stafford walked in and he could challenge Sean McVay right away, and Jared Goff really couldn't. Jared Goff was still learning, and to your point, if Jared Goff's best football is ahead of him, well, then he needs to take that maturity step and become a vocal leader on and off the field. This is a guy that's going to have to be heavily involved in game planning. You gave so much credit to Ben Johnson, and I agree 100%. Late October of last season, Ben Johnson was arguably the second biggest reason this whole thing turned around outside of Dan Campbell for making the decision in the first place.
Right. No, absolutely. And to your point about Andrew Whitworth, because I mean, I could go on this all day. I love this whole thing, but the obviously the relationship was a mess there, and I felt like had a lot to play into that. Right, Sean McVay came in and he turned them around instantly. He got his things going, and where you see Jared Goff was within his development. Look, I've talked to a scout, and he's even said like, hey, when this guy, they thought coming out he was going to be the most NFL ready. He came out, he was not the most NFL ready. He needed time. Like, all right, this guy's actually going to need some time. And I think you saw that with the Rams, where they drafted him at. He had to wait, went 0-7 in his first season. It took him time, and I think he's still probably learning among that. But you're right. When they had Sean McVay come in, immediately you're a playoff team, and you have the money that you have because of where Jared Goff is financially. Let's go get some pieces, and you don't take it over the top. It's tough. And then I also think on the same side is that obviously the 2019s and the 2019 specifically, things fell kind of apart around offensive line, got bad. The run game was completely terrible. They put a lot on his plate. I mean, there were games that year was like the first 10 plays it was passing the football. Like, this is weird. Like, this is not normal here. Meanwhile, Stafford, dude, he's been in Detroit for 12 years without a running game. So it's like Stafford just woke up. He's like, all right, this is just another day. This is what I do. And Sean McVay, where he's at, well, he understands offensively the way that he can get guys open, the way that he can get to the playmaker that he wants to get to. I mean, that guy he just gets it. And you're right. Matthew Stafford can see the entire thing. I think that's why a lot of quarterbacks, they get better with age because they see the picture. They see it before they go out there and need to snap the football. I think Jared Goff didn't really see it all, and that's why you get games like Miami where it was just awful. They just zero blitz, and he was just like, okay, I don't know where to go with the football. And I think that tied all together because of the timing. It turned into a toxic relationship. Obviously, they moved on from each other, but that's why I feel like this Ben Johnson thing, because you think Sean McVay came in, he didn't draft Jared Goff. Sean McVay won very early. Sean McVay had Kirk Cousins in the past. So I think Sean McVay, where he was at, it didn't really match up as well with Jared Goff, where Ben Johnson being a first-time offensive coordinator. I mean, this is an opportunity for both of them to work together. That's why they're getting involved in the offseason. Say, look, this is our first chance at it. This is our first crack. Whatever you do, people see me. If Jared Goff doesn't do well, they're going to be like, hey, Ben Johnson wasn't that good at OC. And the flip side as well, going forward with Goff that's here somewhere else. So I think they both have a blank canvas that they can build on this season, and I think we're gonna see the best Jared Goff going forward.
Absolutely. Dion, one of the things I like to think about all the time is, the future. I like to think how things play out. I like to imagine or really foresee what could happen. I look at the NFC North, and for me this season, I know you don't agree. For me, the Vikings are winning this division this year. The boost that Kirk Cousins will get, and remember, he's coming off his career season. The boost he will get from an offensive-minded head coach, I think, will be astronomical in terms of impact. The offense will be much more efficient. I'm not worried if Dalvin Cook is healthy or not. I think they're going to find a way around it. For me, Minnesota's the best team in the division. Second, Green Bay, and then, of course, third, Detroit. But call me crazy. Could we see Aaron Rodgers have a meltdown this year and the Packers just fall into the abyss? Because he's going to be throwing to a rookie wide receiver, Sammy Watkins, Adam Lazard, and Robert Tonyan? I know Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, but for me, the NFC North picture is clear as day for the next 2 years. I think the Vikings are it for now, and the Lions are going to be the team that we're talking about contending with them in a few years.
I like that. I like that breakdown. I would like what you said there. Because the Packers, I thought once they brought Rodgers back, and yes, some of this is biased, but at the same time, I did feel like when they made the decision with Aaron Rodgers and where that went, I was just like, man, they're not going to be as good as that team that just went to the NFC Championship. Just don't see it. And obviously, they don't have Devontae Adams now. You're right with the receiving core. I mean, that's the position to watch. Now, it is Aaron Rodgers, so we expect it to still be good. But I think when you look at the depth side is where it gets interesting, right? When you start to talk about if there's a few injuries that pop up, where are we in terms of depth here, because last year Devontae Adams is just a big part of that offense. He's a guy that, communication wise, they understood. And man, my goodness, when you watch Devontae Adams versus some of our guys in the past, like, this is a problem. They can put him everywhere, put him and slap him outside. So not having that's going to be huge. With your Vikings idea, I'm not sure if I can say they win the division. I can't go there, man. I still got the Packers because I do think the Packers will win 11, 12 games. And I just think, my thing is you got to have to win about 12 games to beat the Packers. That's how I see it. With that said, though, to the Vikings, this could be their best offensive line, but that will tell the story. But you're right. Kevin O'Connell, I thought, was a fantastic hiring because of all the connection. Like we said, Kirk Cousins with Sean McVay. So I think there's a lot of schematic that just makes sense. I think it's just plug in. It's not turnover. We got the pieces. Let's go. And it should take a big jump. There's no reason it doesn't. But the offensive line, even though they get protected a little bit, is going to be something to watch. Because if you remember, when they had a backup lineman in there, Charles Harris went crazy, and that really flipped the game, and we forced him to throw the ball. It's always the same. Stop the run with the Vikings, make them pass the football, and then you give yourself an opportunity. This season they picked up Verdarian Lowe, so backup tackle. They have Ed Ingram out of LSU, so they got another guard. So it could be their best offensive line, but that'll be the thing to watch for me there. I still got them second, but you may get me. Eventually, you may get me to say that they're going to win the NFC North. I just can't go yet.
I'm going to get you on the train before the season starts. I promise you. I will convince you. What I will say is I sent Mike Zimmer an edible arrangements after he gifted the Lions their first win of the season last year. So, shout out to Mike Zimmer for being a complete buffoon down the stretch, not only with the Vikings, but specifically that game against the Lions. Dion, you're awesome, man. That was great. I appreciate you coming on, dude.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me anytime, and we're going to have to get you back on this show, too.
Yeah, anytime, man. You have my number. Anytime. Ladies and gentlemen, go subscribe to Dose of Dion's YouTube channel if you haven't already. Give him a follow on social media if you haven't already as well.